Poland joining the EU opened many doors to Poles who decided to make the UK their permanent home. My next guest was here to experience it all and help those who decided to make this life-changing decision. Piotr Michalik, former banker, businessman, now in charge of running several Polish institutions here in London, including the Polish Hearth, where we are right now. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
So let's start from the very beginning. When did you decide to come to the UK and why?
Quite a while ago. It was in Krakow, in fact. I was a student. I studied electronics, electrical engineering, and I met some English people. I met some English people who came to Krakow to study Polish history, and we became quite good friends. I tried to show them Krakow. They talk about England, about London quite a lot. I was young, curious, and when they invited me to London for during my holiday, I thought, well, why not? A lot of things I expected from my books. I saw the usual red buses, the black cabs, Big Ben, and the weather was slightly better than I expected. I was always told.
It's always the weather,
yes,
isn't it?
Yes, it's always the weather, and it was supposed to be grim and foggy and rainy. In fact, it was very, very nice. So that's when I came to the UK to the UK for the first time. I think it's already at that time I decided to come back to the UK to basically improve my English, my pronunciation. I never thought I would stay here, but English was important, and then speaking good English in Poland, working for whoever I would be working, I thought it would be a great advantage to me. So that was my first thought about staying in the UK.
How did you find your footing here?
When I decided myself that my English was good enough, I thought maybe I should also improve my education. So I went to university. I studied at University College London, studied computer science. I made a lot of friends. And when I graduated, again, I was going to go back to Poland, but I was persuaded by my British English friends to stay a little bit longer. They usually take 1 year off after university, as they said, stay for a bit longer. The gap year, exactly.
The famous gap year.
But I didn't want to be a burden on my parents, so I thought, well, if I stay, I need some sort of job. I need to earn some money. One of my friends, very good friends, he said, well, any job would do. You're a student, but if you buy a pink newspaper, meaning the Financial Times, you'll pay more for the newspaper, but when you get a job, they'll pay you more. That's what I did, and that's how I ended up in banking.
So that was before 2004, before Poland joined the EU, was it?
That was before 2004, yes. So I was already working between 2004. There were a few of us from Poland, but not many. We knew each other. We would meet on a regular basis, but most of us work for British institutions, mostly banks.
So before 2004, was it difficult for you and the group of Poles that worked within your sector to find that job?
It wasn't difficult. It was, mostly the language was a barrier. Once you grasp the language, it was much, much easier. There were several jobs here, and then I think Britain is one of those countries, if they think you have potential and you are good, they'll give you a job. So that's what happened, I think, to most of us. Somehow we managed to persuade people we were good enough to be employed, and they would usually say yes to any opportunities that arise.
Which is incredibly important. It's incredibly important to help luck and to help open doors.
It's very important. It's very important. It's I always think when you say yes, you have an opportunity to show people you can do it. Sometimes it doesn't work, but I think if you're determined enough, it usually works. Also, my father, I remember when I was young, he would always say, education and hard work and doing what you love to do, not what you have to do, will take you a long way. And when I started working in the city, I didn't know anything about banking at that time. I was an engineer and I studied computer science. But I loved it. I really wanted to succeed, and then I worked long hours. Sometimes people were surprised. I said, "Why do you work for 16 hours?"
You really had the drive to make it work.
Yes, if you love it, and then I really wanted to make it work. So that's what I did, and then somehow I succeeded, and then ended up in the city for quite a long time.
And then 2004 happens. Poland joins the EU, and then it seems to be that everything changes for Poles who decide to come to the UK. How do you remember that time here in the United Kingdom, here in London?
It was a very jubilant time for us here, those few Polish people who were here. We were very happy there would be more Polish people coming here. We expected it, on the 1st of May, we were prepared for this. We were prepared there would be. We didn't know how many people would come, but expected quite a few. So just a few months before, we decided to set up Polish City Club to welcome the new generation or the new Poles who would come here, help them to settle here, to find accommodation. We were mentoring them. We would even go, I think, to Poland a couple of times to university to tell them what they should expect. So when they came here, we would meet on a regular basis.
That's wonderful.
We were networking together. We were helping them. Initially, there were usual questions: where I can find accommodation, what I can do. Some people came already with their jobs.
Obviously, once you change a country, this is one of the first things that you need to ask, isn't it?
So things were progressing, there were more Polish people, and then those who came earlier would help the others, and we would meet. So there
was a sense of community.
It was very much a sense of community, very much sense of community. People were coming and getting jobs. They were very determined to succeed, and they did succeed. I mean, people were succeeding.
Was there an influx of Poles only coming to London, concentrated in London, or do you think that there were different parts of the UK that Poles decided to go to?
Initially, it was London. Initially, people would come to London, but over time, they spread literally across the whole country. Wherever you would go, there were Polish people working in various businesses, various sectors. So it did spread across the country. Yes.
For you, obviously, this experience was a little different because you came to the UK a few years before. You've had that experience. But obviously, for a group coming after 2004, assimilation must have been a big thing, but also a big challenge. Do you think it was a challenge for Poles coming to become a part of the society?
It was a challenge. I don't think it was as big challenge as one would think. The culture, in theory, is different, but in practice, there are not so many basic differences. Both nations are hard-working nations. We like to succeed. We are quite innovative, and we like being paid for what we do. And also, we like a party, both of us.
Oh.
So all those things together made Poles feel much more comfortable, much quicker than you would expect. Of course, there were some differences. I've been here for a while, and then I like a British pint, I suppose, but I still prefer much prefer Polish food to famous English fish and chips. So there are some differences, but it was helping with each other, and then knowing the language. It was the key was always knowing the language. If you knew the language, it was much easier to progress, succeed, and people did.
When you look at that group coming after 2004 and how they were becoming a part of the society, what was the conception from the other side, from the British side, about Poles who were coming from this land after 2004?
Generally, the Poles were welcomed. They would come here. They would want to work hard in various areas. They got on with the British people. They would make friends quite quickly. So they were very, very welcome, and then a lot of friendships between the Polish people and the British people. It worked very, very well. I mean, you can see how many mixed marriages we have now, and then they fell in love, and then it was good for the Poles.
After 2004. How did this assimilation work between the groups that were here before, especially, for example, families that came here before and during World War II, then in the 60s, and then later on?
Initially, it wasn't great. The older generation who had been here for quite a while, they welcomed the new generation, but they were not sure. So for example, this club belonged to, it was set up in 1939. During the Second World War, was home for all those Poles who come here. And then the next generations kind of believed it's theirs. So when the younger generation came, we set up the Polish City Club, so that was our club, and we tried to mix together. I was the first president of the Polish City Club, so I know well. I tried to integrate the younger generation from the Polish City Club with, for example, this club, the Hearth Club. But it wasn't very easy. We had some meetings and some events, but it was. It didn't click straight away, but over time, when the older generation realized we came here not to take their jobs, to take over what they achieved, things were much better. We became much closer, and eventually we worked very well together, and it continues.
As from 2004, after Poland joined the EU, would you say that there was a big interest of Poles coming to the UK, or would you say that it was somewhat similar to other European countries?
There was a big interest. I was surprised how many people came. Initially, it was a slow process, but quite quickly accelerated. So people were coming. People who came here would call their friends in Poland, and they said, "I got a job. It's good here. Come and join me." And then it was like the process, continuous process, and people did come. And then people who were coming. Mostly were very successful, so why wouldn't you come? It's easy to fly to Poland, it's only 2 hours flight, so you could come and see your family all the time, but there were new opportunities and people would come, and yes, they were happy to be here.
So a few years passed, and then we heard about the decision that was supposed to be made by the community during a referendum, the idea of Brexit. How would you say that influenced the Polish community here in the UK? Did it cause any panic?
Brexit was an unfortunate event. We were prepared for the referendum when David Cameron, the Prime Minister at that time, mentioned in the Parliament it was inevitable, it would happen. So everybody was prepared for the referendum, but nobody really, the Polish community wasn't really prepared for the Brexit. I remember on the eve of the referendum, David Cameron said, "Oh, I think we'll be all right," meaning we'll stay in Europe. Well, it didn't happen. The next day we woke up, and then there was Brexit. So I think this was the first time when the Polish people and the Europeans felt a little unwelcome here. They spent over the Polish people over 10 years here, or a decade, or 12 years, in fact. So a lot of them settled down here, they had jobs, and they felt great. And
families?
Suddenly, families, yes, there were a lot of families, mixed families. Some of them already had children, and then children would speak Polish and English, so they felt at home here. They would come to grandparents in Poland, but this was their home. So it was quite a shocking experience. But life goes on. So after the initial shock, people got used to it, had to adjust. Some people decided to go back to Poland, but a lot of people stayed. Everybody thinks Brexit, or rather the perceptions Brexit, this was really bad. It was bad, but there were also some good things about Brexit. All those Poles who left for Poland gained good experience here. They had good jobs, went to Poland. They contributed to the Polish economy in Poland. Also, the British companies and banks wanted to be in Europe. So they set up their subsidiaries, their offices in Europe, and Poland was a great country to do it in. We were booming, the economy was booming, the culture was understood because there were so many Poles here. So a lot of companies set up their subsidiaries in Poland. So again, the Brexit happened, but the connections, business connections and then social connections remained, and over time I think got even bigger.
Do you think that a lot of young Polish people would find it challenging to be able to come to the UK right now after it left the EU?
I think if they want to come to work, it's getting better now, and then if they came, they would be able to work in their areas. Depends what they would like to do, but there are a lot of opportunities now. But in terms of studying, it's much more difficult. We are not in the EU, so before we didn't have to pay for it. Now it's very, very different. Things are expensive, so there are some grants they can get, and they are.
And let's hope it stays that way and we keep growing, you know, in this bilateral relationship.
I'm pretty sure it will. If one wants to, and then is determined, things happen, and then the connections are already there. You can't take out eggs of the omelette once you made it. So
once
that's where we are. That's where we are. So I think we'll continue grow together, and then I'm very positive about this. Very positive.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your insight and telling me the story of how you made it here and how you helped the others.
Thanks very much. Thank you
for having me. Piotr Michalik, a businessman and a philanthropist. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more here on TVP World.